Welcome back to the Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where you talk about all of your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. This week, we are discussing the finale of My Hero Academia and the totality of Kohei Horikoshi's story. We're also going to cover the new series from Deadpool Samurai Team as they jump to a new genre. That's Chapter 1 of Secret Steward. All that, manga news, and more coming right up. Hello again, my name is Bruce. I am the proprietor of the White Gray Black YouTube channel. This week, I am joined again by my constant co-host, Gautam.
Hello, hello.
A special shout out and thanks, of course, to our Patreon subscribers, Yaji Black. If you want to have your name read at the top of the episode, see some bonus content, check out patreon.com/WGBmanga. It's only $3 a month, and it helps us out a lot. Without further ado, Gautam, let's do our final episode and discussion of My Hero Academia by Kohei Horikoshi. This is the last chapter. This chapter is titled My Hero Academia, chapter 430. This series ran for 10 years in Weekly Shonen Jump. Tell me your feelings on My Hero Academia as a whole, Gautam.
Yeah, okay. As a whole, I thought it was a series with a great start, and it continued pretty strong for a while. And then I'd say about like maybe halfway through, it became I don't know what happened. It became incredibly weird and uninteresting. It
lost the map, is what I would say. It
lost exactly.
Its guidebook, lost its way.
It certainly did. I feel like Horikoshi had maybe, like, this is just speculation, but it feels like eyes bigger than his stomach. He's sort of burning out at a certain point, which is why we see a dip in the quality of writing halfway through. And I think it also explains why Deku was like a freshman year student. It's only been like the whole thing was only 6 months long.
Yeah, the whole time. And this last chapter, we skip ahead 8 years. So it's like, I guess they like start the second year in the last, like the 2 chapters before this. But yeah,
I anticipate he wanted it to be like a Harry Potter situation where like you follow Deku through all 4 years of school.
Or 3, but yeah.
Or 3 or whatever
Japanese,
it is. Yeah, but yeah, essentially, I think overall, I think Hero Academia is disappointing, but I don't think the series has nothing going for it. I think opinions online are exceedingly maybe harsh in that they forget why they liked it in the first place. It had some strong points, and I think in the epilogue we saw like some decent writing bits that came through. But yeah, ultimately, I'd say the ending wasn't super great for me either. But what can you do when the second half of the series is the way it is, I guess?
Yeah, it was just kind of, I think my feelings mirror yours pretty closely. I do agree. I think the starting like maybe 160 chapters, 180, maybe 200 chapters were somewhere between like pretty good to amazing. Like, I think there's some really good stuff in the first half of My Hero Academia. Some examples, like I think the sports festival Deku versus Todoroki. I think Todoroki embracing his fire powers and claiming them as his own. I think that is great. Not only a fantastic writing, in my opinion. I think that's also awesome. There was also awesome action. I think it's good. I think that whole sports festival was great. I think Bakugo winning is a great story choice to make over our main character winning. I
think that's undoubtedly the best arc, and it was a tournament arc, which is funny. But yeah, it was the best arc in terms of characterization and in fights. Like, it was just cool. It
was great. Yeah, cool. I think Uraraka versus Bakugo also was great. That was a cool fight. It was cool, inventive. And the whole start of the story was Deku and the other people using their powers in very creative and inventive ways, and Deku using his brain, which I think that we've talked about is something that he just loses right around halfway through the story. He's not
sports festival part where it's like a race, and he uses like a section of the race where it's like a minefield, and he uses like this metal shield to detonate the mines and propel himself forward. I thought that was so creative and cool. It's like he didn't even use his powers. He just used his brain to win that one. And
exactly. Yeah.
I missed that Deku in the second half of the series.
Absolutely, yeah. The Deku who had his little books to look at and keep track of everyone. That Deku gets thrown out the window fairly
really
quickly,
does.
and I think it's disappointing because I think that's a more interesting character than the Deku that we get for the last half of the story. I think you made a good comparison that I can kind of use to like really sum up my feelings about My Hero Academia. I think that's Harry Potter. I don't know about you, but I grew up reading Harry Potter. Like I started reading the first book when I think I was 11. Like the age that Harry is in the first book is when I started reading them.
I think most millennials can align there.
Yeah. And so I, grew up reading them. I think the last one came out, I think I was 19 and the last one came out, or 18 maybe. But I like quite literally grew up with Harry Potter. And reading them when I was that age, I saw, I had my favorites and my least favorites, but I didn't see, flaws in storytelling or the type of misses that I see when I would go back to try to read it as an adult, as a more sort of studied person in story and text and literature and all that stuff. And I think that My Hero Academia kind of is a similar type of story to Harry Potter in the way that it's not the most well-written thing you're ever going to read. There's some bad writing in it. There's some bad characterization. Some stuff gets, flanderized and changed by the end. I would say Harry Potter improved over time, or My Hero Academia got worse is maybe the big difference. But I do think that if you enjoy My Hero Academia, or if this is your first battle shonen, I think you could do a lot worse. Just like I would still suggest to people, if they have an 11-year-old kid, I would say let them read Harry Potter. Like, absolutely. Those books are perfect for that age. They should
a little
read
bit
them
of a harder wreck now because of J.K. Rowling being
true.
A scumbag on Twitter.
Yeah, death of the author and all that. If you ignore her bullshit, I do still think the Harry Potter books are sort of worth reading for that age range. I think it can get people sort of passionate about reading. I think they're exciting books. I think they are written well for the sort of grade level
so too.
They are sold at. And I think My Hero Academia is the same sort of story. I think that this, it is in a shonen magazine. It is, a battle shonen for young boys. And I think if you're, even, like 14, I don't know, like 12 to 20, like I think even when I was 20, I still would have enjoyed rereading Harry Potter. If you're in that age range, I still think you can certainly do worse than My Hero Academia in the battle shonen genre. I think it has a lot of merit, especially like we mentioned in the first half. I think the art in it was probably pretty consistently the best in Jump for almost its entire run. I don't think it gets beat by much in the magazine proper, except at maybe random moments. I
think the problem is the reason why you see a lot of harshness, especially like us too, right? We're hard on My Hero, is because we remember why we liked it in the first place, and it's like it's kind of jarring to compare the first half of Hero to the second half of Hero, and
I agree.
It's like hard not to be harsh when we know what Hori is capable of at its peak.
Totally. And I think that's true of a lot of people who are down and negative on the second half. And these last, I don't know, 3 times we've covered My Hero on the podcast, it's been sort of like, what's going on? What is this bullshit? This doesn't make any sense. This whole last arc we don't like. The Dark Deku is a stupid choice. You're absolutely right that the reason that it's so disappointing to kind of see where the story went, and I would say especially the last third. I think the middle third is maybe sort of like okay, but not great. But the final third, I think, just has more issues than you can go over in a podcast episode. I think it's because the first part of My Hero Academia is really, really good. Like, not even just like good enough. It's like seriously solid. Like, I think probably every arc up through the Yakuza arc in My Hero Academia is some of the best like action battle shonen of the last 10 years, I would say. Like it's up there. It's really good.
I'd even include the Yakuza arc. I actually really enjoyed it. But after that,
I was including the Yakuza arc up to the end of the Yakuza arc, I guess.
I see. Yeah. After that, you're right. It's a steep decline. with that said, Gentle and La Brava was like a little fun side journey.
There's still good stuff in there, which I think is kind of what makes it even more disappointing is like, like Gentle and La Brava. I think that their little thing was great. That little side story. I think,
Twice,
like
everything with Twice.
Yeah, great. Everything with Twice I think was well written. I honestly think that all of the story stuff with Endeavor, like I think that was handled really well and really carefully. Now it was kind of surrounded by some other stuff that made it not fully connect or hit, but I do think that the idea of like a dad who was so focused on producing more superheroes and and being hard on his children, which is something that lots of kids experience, their parents being hard on them, with expectations and stuff. That's something a lot of people can relate to. And a father trying to sort of improve and do better and let his children be who they want to be while still supporting them. Like that's good writing. That's great growth. I really like that part of the story.
I loved it too, because it's like a hard thing to sell because he's abusive, right? He's abusive and caused his own family's destruction in so many ways. And then Hori's like, okay, now let's try to make you sympathize with him. And it works. I did sympathize with him. And that's like it's a really hard thing to do. Hori has some writing chops when he wants to, right? Especially when it has to do with like intimate character stuff. I think Hori knows what he's doing. But yeah,
I think there's probably an angle of I don't know enough about Kohei Horikoshi to say this, but it seems to me like that's something he relates to and is able to write from some sort of experience, either his own or, a close friend or someone of like, oh yeah, my parents were hard on me. Then they tried to do this. This is what happened. Like it speaks to me as someone who really understands that sort of story. In a way that let him write it more truthfully.
Yeah, it really felt like that. I agree. So Bruce, what would you say is your like favorite arc in the whole story?
That's a good. I do think the sports festival tournament arc was good. I did like that one. I really like the retreat arc. I don't know what you want to call it, where they go into the forest to study with the Pussycat dolls. That's not their name. What are they called?
Yeah, the Pussycat dolls.
Yeah, the Pussycat dolls. Whatever. I thought that was a pretty good arc, and it's kind of hype because it just ends with Deku doing Big Punch, which most arcs do. I actually think that my favorite part of My Hero Academia, it's not even necessarily.
Yeah, let's say favorite part. Yeah,
not even necessarily a full arc. I do think, and I think it's around chapter 140 or 120, I want to say, but Deku versus Bakugo after All Might retires, I think is some of the best writing. Bakugo feeling responsible for that after being kidnapped by the bad guys, All Might having to come in and fight all for one. I think that part, and honestly, even that whole arc before it too. I think All Might pointing at the screen and saying "You're next, kid" or whatever he says. Like, I think that's hype as shit. Like that, I think that's good. But I really, really like Deku versus Bakugo after that. I think the emotional stakes are there. I think the actual action and paneling in that is exceptional. I did a breakdown on that years ago that I wrote that is lost to the internet. That fight and the stuff that leads up to it, right? I really like that fight, and I like the way it resolves. You would think like, oh yeah, Deku's right, he's not his fault, so he'll win the fight, and it's like, nope, Bakugo wins that fight, which I think is awesome. There's a lot of times in the series you think, oh, Deku's going to win this, and it's like, nope, Bakugo wins that. By the way, he's actually like the strongest dude. So I really like that part. What about you? What's your favorite arc or part of My Hero?
My favorite would be the end of the Yakuza arc, where Mirio solos the main villains of that arc and sacrifices his power so that Eri doesn't lose hers. That was like my favorite moment of the series. It was so good, in fact, that I liked Mirio more than I liked any other character in the series at that point. That's
like around the time that I cut up and we started talking about My Hero. And I remember like you have been gushed about Mirio for years. I think he's a really good character in that arc introduced for sure.
In that arc, because then he's not really utilized. But
and then he randomly gets his power back because Area versus Time, and he's in the final.
And then Hori decides, fight. Yeah, he doesn't really care about Mirio, and Mirio doesn't do much for the rest of the series. But anyway,
which is sad.
it's I guess a symptom of My Hero Academia going the way it did. But
Yeah.
Having too many characters, too many loose ends to tie up and all that. But Mirio in that moment was like the truest sense of a hero, and his quirk was like one that Hori told in like great detail how much he worked to make it a good quirk.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of it is a culmination of like hard work, effort, and just being a genuinely good person. Hori made a very likable character. And the only part about that arc that was kind of like felt not super necessary was Deku saving the day at the end, which was a big hype moment for Deku. But I'm like, all right, but you didn't really have any. I guess it felt like you just came in at the end and resolved the problem.
Yeah, he wasn't really the emotional core of that whole
Exactly.
Yakuza arc. It was all about All Might's old assistant, his sidekick, Night Eye. I think. It was all about Night Eye and Mirio, and for that arc specifically, I really liked the dynamics of Deku being like, still obviously striving to be like, how do I be a good hero? And I think Mirio as a sort of, oh, look, here's this kid who's a third year who's already like, look how amazing this guy is. Look how much he cares. Look how much he saves. Look how much he sacrifices. I think that's all great. But then it is not really thrown out, but it is lessened a little bit, the impact of Deku being like, allow me to show up and save Eri myself. Even though Mirio saved her, and then I'll be the one who does the big fight, and then I win the big fight. It's kind of the ending doesn't totally work for me in that arc, but I do. Yeah. I mean, I think Red Riot's fight in that arc is also sick as shit. Like that's a great part.
That's really great.
All the history stuff with Night Eye and All Might, I think is great. I think that's a really good arc. So.
I guess another criticism of that arc is that they had the girls just like fuck off for the arc and then show up at the end. It's like Hori never giving any of the women a spotlight.
Let's use that to transfer into. Let's do two things. Let's talk. What is your least favorite kind of overall just thing about My Hero Academia, or maybe its biggest issue for you? And then talk about maybe some of your least favorite, like specific examples, moments, arcs, whatever.
Sure. I
guess
to
start. Or you want to go?
Well, let's just say what the one we were segueing off of is that women get no time to shine in this series.
Horikoshi cannot write a girl to save his fucking life. Like, come on, man. Like. There's like sort of one well-written character, I would say. I think Toga is pretty well handled.
She's the only one with screen time.
She's the only well-written female character in the entirety of 430 chapters of My Hero Academia. Uraraka is a fucking love plot device. No one else gets to do anything. I will say that the anime, because I watched the anime for the first, I guess like 2 seasons maybe. The anime like expands the female presence and gives them their own episodes and gives them like more to do. And it does a lot of service to the story. It is incredibly disappointing the way that Horikoshi, I won't even say the way that he writes girls, the way that he just chooses absolutely to not write girls most of the time, which is insane because he can write boys and it's the same. Like you can literally just swap the gender. Girls feel the same thing boys feel. Yes, that's absolutely my choice of like the most disappointing. I think my biggest critique of My Hero Academia is its like absolutely blatant just ignorance of and missing female characterization with basically every single female character.
I think the only time that chicks got screen time was. It's funny because even in the big 3, right, of this series, which is Mirio, Sun Eater, and
Spiral Girl, I don't know anything about her. The other 2, I know about their history. Yeah,
I don't even know her name, to be honest.
I also do not remember. It's
Nejire, I think.
Nejire, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, she gets nothing, right? But the other 2 get their own fights and like cool moments.
And like histories and backstories and motivations. Like it's again, he literally gives motivation and backstories to like think of how many of like the bad guy, like there's like the portal dude got a backstory twice, Dabi, the main dude whose name I'm forgetting, All for One, the lizard guy, I don't remember all these names. So that's like 6 guys and then Toga, like 1 girl. And if you look on like in class 1, it's like it's literally nobody. There's like a bunch of, it's like Todoroki, Bakugo, Deku all have some good history. Ida has some stuff with his brother that's told. We get some stuff with Red Riot. We get some stuff with the laser naval guy. We get a little
We
bit
get
of
stuff
even
with Pinky a little bit, but it's not a lot.
like, yeah, barely. It's like one little thing, and there's like one little thing with Momo and one little thing with the earphone jack girl, and like Kuro, the bird guy. What's his Kuro? I don't remember.
I don't know.
He gets like a whole thing with like with the bird dude, and I don't. Yeah, again, it's just like he just doesn't. He just chooses not to write girls like at all, and
Except we will say Mirko gets some stuff.
She's cool. She's cool on screen. She doesn't. We don't understand anything about her, but she is cool. Like,
do we count her awesome backstory in Vigilantes?
No, we don't. Someone else wrote that, and it is awesome, and it is much better than literally anything in My Hero Academia for a girl has ever gotten. Yeah, Mirko's like fight in that boxing rink or whatever, and all the backstory.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was
great.
So
cool. Yeah, go read Vigilantes. That's going to be the final the final call here.
Okay, so real quick. We're still on the subject of talking about what we don't like. Aside from how Horikoshi writes women, what would you say is your next thing that you didn't love?
I think the other big thing, and it's really hard to pin down exactly where it comes from or why it happened, is essentially that Horikoshi is not a very good writer when he is writing week to week. I think the biggest issue with My Hero Academia, and I think we've talked about this in the past, is that I think Horikoshi in his mind had the first couple of arcs that he had been thinking about for a few years, at least, mostly fleshed out, and all this early character stuff. I think he mostly had thought about that. And I think he got to a certain point and he was sort of out of ideas. But the problem with that is you're a weekly manga creator and you have to keep going. And I don't think Hori is very good at writing from the seat of his pants, at being a sort of discovery writer, is what you call that, right? There's planners and discoverers, or they have some other names, but he's not very good at that. And I think I think you can literally point to that as why the second half of My Hero Academia is not very good, is essentially that he never had time to stop and plan and see where his characters were going, or, maybe even just like reread the first couple of chapters that he wrote and say, oh yeah, I put this limitation, or the character used to be like this. Like, he just kind of loses his own story because he has to write a new thing every single week. I think his art takes a dip too about halfway through. Like the Baku versus Dekugo fight is an incredibly well paneled and structured and choreographed fight. And I don't think any fight after that ever is as good. I have trouble tracking Horikoshi's action all through the second half with paneling. I think it's still well drawn. I think his individual drawings and side panels are great. But something about him not getting a break. I know he had health issues at the end even and had to take some weeks breaks. And that does not surprise me at all. So I don't know where the issue stems from, but I just think that Horikoshi needs time to plan and think about his story, and it'll be better. Because I think one of the reasons that My Hero Academia is better at the start is that I think this is a story that he had been thinking about and planning, at least in his mind, for a couple of years. And after he sort of got through the things that he had been thinking about, he did not have time to stop and think about more. He just had to keep writing, and the further writing stuff just does not work, like hardly at all for me. So
to continue on with that, right? Because it's the same thing with me. It's a pacing mess, right? This all happened in 9 months. So even Deku's like declaration at the end is like, oh, I never had a quirk, but it was nice living the dream for a bit. And it's like, your dream was like, you didn't even finish 1 year of school. Yeah. Like, you gained and lost your power already within that year. It's like, that's rough. Do a time skip. It's like, it's fine. Yeah. Take a break like Oda did. Do a time skip so Deku's a second year.
Yeah.
Or at least make this not happen over 9 months where Deku's breaking the same arm and mending it and breaking it and mending it and breaking it and mending it all within 9 months, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely another issue. It's just
my least favorite part is the power creep though. Like where he got all 9 powers, like Spider-Man powers, which is Spidey Sense and Spidey Black Whip and all that stuff.
Yeah, I also did not like that. And honestly, I think that's a side effect of him not knowing where to go with his story. He goes, well, if I just throw more powers in there, I'll have more stuff to talk about. There's basically no foreshadowing for Deku having more powers or having multiple personalities to talk to inside him up until we get that reveal. There's like maybe a couple chapters before, but like there's virtually no foreshadowing in the previous parts of the story. So
Agree. I was hoping that Deku would be like a super strength guy that thought his way out of his problems because he can't meet All Might's strength. Because All Might's built like a fucking house, right?
Yeah.
Of course he can have super speed and punch a hole in the universe and whatnot. But Deku is just like a kid, and a nerdy kid, who worked on his body, but it's still like rejecting his power, as you see like at the beginning of the series. I was hoping his workarounds would be like using them in creative ways that All Might didn't, because he didn't have to. And instead, like, I don't know, working around his bodily destruction every time he uses his powers.
And the first half of the story does have that, right? Like he learns, what's the stupid name for it? Shoot style or whatever.
Shoot style,
he like uses
kicks.
his legs more so his fingers don't break. And it's like, yeah, there you go. He's like thinking his way out of a problem with his power, out of a drawback with his power. This might come up later when I bring up my one more thing, but general power systems with drawbacks are almost always more interesting. One of the ones that's brought up a lot is Darker Than Black. I think it's one of the greatest power systems in anime and manga because they have weird drawbacks, right? You have to like drink the blood of children or smoke a cigarette or, eat a microwave meal or whatever. And that creates interesting situations for people to think about when they're using their powers and when they're not using their powers. And Deku had that early on. And once he has all 13 powers, he does... I don't want to say no thinking, but he does essentially no thinking about when to use what power because he can fly, because he has Spider-Man web whips, his black whip. He has, he also still has a super strength. He has all these other things. He has Spidey sense, right? Does he have like...
it lowers the stakes too, because I guarantee you, I remember Deku versus Todoroki. I was like, what are you going to fucking do next? You already broke all your fingers. It's like,
he's gonna break
you
them
want
again.
You want the audience thinking, holy shit, that's hardcore. What is going to happen next?
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, well, Deku probably Deus Ex Machina this with one of his 80 powers that I'm not aware of,
Yeah. Like, holy shit, Deku is making sacrifices to gain a victory as opposed to, all right, which powers are you using next? And
towards the end, you see like the powers being established on the spot is like, oh, I can shift to gear 3 and that makes me fast for 15 minutes, but only 15 minutes. Yeah, it's like, you explained it while he's using it. The audience, like, we understand the stakes and conditions of the Todoroki versus Deku fight, what Deku's capable of. This is all Calvin Ball, like what we're seeing now. So we don't know what will happen, but for the wrong reasons, I guess.
And it's not just a problem with Deku. I think every single person's power who is introduced in the first half with some kind of drawback is almost never... that drawback is like almost never used again in the entire rest of the story. Like Momo's drawback, if she creates items by like pulling them out of her body, it's said early on that like takes away from her body fat or her body like mass, I guess. And so she has to like eat a lot, but that never comes up again. Or like Todoroki to where using hot and cold, he can use hot and cold to balance his heat, but if he uses one more than the other, it'll make him too cold or too hot. Never comes up again. Like literally never a problem.
I can forgive the Momo thing because clearly Horikoshi forgot Momo existed.
Yeah, that was just an example. Point. But like even like
I know.
Like even Bakugo had a drawback, and I don't even remember it. But like I'm pretty sure he did, right? Like early. Yeah,
it's like I think it was like he had to have like a certain amount of sweat, and he started running out of glycerin supplies as he ran out of sweat. As his body
just can't produce all that sweat if he runs out of water, I guess, or something, right? So yeah. But everybody has all these.
I think his powers just dwindled as they went. Kind of a thing.
Yeah. And again, like in the second half of the story, doesn't show up again. So that's, I definitely think that the power system I thought was pretty well thought out early on. And by the end of the series, you just didn't care. So
I think that just might be Hori burning out.
I think this is all a side effect of him essentially, like I said, just kind of losing the map about halfway through, losing, where do I go with this? What do I do? Not having enough time again to like review stuff and edit things down and think about, oh yeah, that power has this drawback. How do I include that in this fight? Because you don't have time. I mean, just literally, I think he just didn't have time to do all that. I do hope, I was going to say, I think we are seeing more and more in the modern age mangaka taking breaks. For instance, we just had the Dan manga take a month break for whatever reason. Frieren manga's taken, 2 breaks this year, 1 break last year, to sort of do, they haven't really said what, but I would assume hopefully to do story work and things like that. Oda works, technically publishes 3 chapters a month, so he gets a week, quote unquote, off. I think those are all much healthier schedules. And I really, we've been talking about this for years, but we really wish Horikoshi would have just taken like even a year. Can you imagine if he just like took a year break and came back and wrote the last half? And I just think it would have been way better.
I think people might have forgotten about it if he took a year.
I don't know. But Ruri Dragon took a year off and came back and was still a pretty big hit. And that, only came out with like 8 chapters, but who knows?
Yeah, but Ruri Dragon doesn't really have anything to remember, right? It's a slice of life. You can just and exit. But I see what you mean. I agree that ultimately working conditions are fucking toxic.
Yeah.
But real quick, let's pivot here because I want to talk about kind of the ending and the epilogue.
You talk about the chapter.
Yeah, or let's talk about like the final fight too.
Okay, yeah.
Because here's kind of what I thought, Bruce, and you can let me know what you think. But I thought the final fight was quite stupid and bad. But I thought the epilogue had some nice moments. How did you feel overall?
I tend to agree. I think starting from about where they like raid the hospital or whatever, like that's like the start of the day that is the last, I don't know, 100 and like 80 or 90 chapters of My Hero Academia, the last easily 2 years. Starting from right about there, almost all of the action is nearly incomprehensible to me. I think it is very, very difficult to track things that are happening. And I think that's true of the sort of big final battle between Deku and Shigaraki. Also, I mean, it just kind of ties into what we're talking about with the powers and him getting all these other powers. Like, it just invents a way for him to solve that fight by being able to like inject his powers into Shigaraki, who then like sacrifice themselves to do
beat All For One.
Beat him, and then Deku has
I don't. But
some
like
of All For One left.
I don't know. And that makes sense because All Might still has embers of All For One. Right. But like I guess I didn't like that ending because it's like Deku didn't have the heart-to-heart with Shigaraki that I thought he would. Yeah. That kind of earns that little, all right, I lost, tell Spinner I love him, all that stuff, right? Like, that moment was like overshadowed by All For One showing up again for God knows what reason. And
getting turned into a baby and something, I don't...
Oh, no, this is after that. This is even after that. After the baby mode, All For One. Which was hilarious, but like I like that part because Bakugo was there and he was being a shithead to the baby. But no, it was the very end when Deku injected him with his powers and the powers ate All For One. And All For One took over Shigaraki. Yeah. And then Shigaraki is one of the powers that ate All For One. And then Shigaraki just dies and says, see ya, Deku. It was nice. It was fun. And I'm like, that wasn't really earned. Deku and Shigaraki didn't even have a moment. Shigaraki didn't change his values. Like, nothing within his character should have stirred because all that happened is All For One took over and then Deku stopped All For One from taking over and then Shigaraki dies. Yeah. I guess I wish we had more Shigaraki and Deku moments to make that part feel a little better. Yeah. Especially when Vigilantes did that kind of scene with the villain a million times.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, another call out here. If you're watching or listening, Vigilantes is a better version of My Hero Academia across the entire board. All of these complaints that we have are not present in.
It's fucked up, dude. It's fucked up because it's the same ending. It's the same ending as Vigilantes, which ended earlier and did it so much better.
Yeah, it's pointing at the main bad guy or the final fight bad guy at least and saying like, you were abused. Let me, accept that. I have to stop you because I won't let you hurt more people. But like, I accept that you were, a product of your environment. That is sad. I am sorry. Die now. And that's what happens right at the end of both of them. It's just a huge like this is. Like textbook Deus Ex Machina, basically, like God from the machine, from nothing, right?
Yeah.
Again, inventing this idea that I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say that like because you can pass the power of One For All through a hair and like wanting to pass it, that means that he could also just pass the powers into Shigaraki.
I think Shigaraki
I don't know.
Shigaraki had like a power stealing ability activated.
Oh, it was like let them get stolen.
Yeah, like the same way. Yeah, he let them get
That makes
stolen
more
the same way
sense.
he took Star and Stripe's
Wouldn't
power.
it? Okay, just to get a little sort of what if for a little bit right here. Wouldn't it have been poetic and circular in a way if what Deku had to do to get those powers into Shigaraki was to get him to eat his hair? Like, wouldn't that be cool to be like, yeah, you started the very first thing was all my, here, eat my hair.
Goofy. I think that would have been pretty goofy.
I think it would have been goofy, but it would have been like, oh, like I have to pass these powers on to Shigaraki to get them inside him to have them do the damage. How do I do that? Like the only way I know to pass the power on is to give him hair. Maybe we know that it's like, oh, his blood will work too. Like maybe we're in Dark Deku mode, right? So maybe it's like, oh, if I get blood in his mouth, I can pass my powers on to him, and that.
Or hear this. It just has to be DNA. What if they kiss?
Don't start it. The shivers will come. Oh no. Deku has to kiss Bakugo. Gautam, you don't know this?
True. They did it in Naruto. They can do it here.
Yeah, I don't. Well, the whole ending. You're right that it doesn't work for me. I think it has some interesting moments, and I do think that the idea is right, and we know that because Vigilantes used the same idea and pulled it off correctly. Is kind of the short way to say it.
Yeah,
but he did not execute it in a way that I liked.
It's because it was done in 2 chapters, and it like omitted Shigaraki from the equation for whatever reason. It was weird.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of ties back to something that I didn't like about the ending in general, and it kind of especially this last chapter. All this flashback, like I saw people complaining that Deku is like literally a jobber, like just a teacher, no powers or whatever. 8 years later, that doesn't super bother me. That's kind of what I expected, right? I mean, this is essentially the Harry Potter, like Harry goes and becomes a cop, right? Where it's like that is kind of the normal, like most.
Give him a fucking statue though. That's all I'm saying, right? Where's the Deku statue? He fucking saved the world. Yeah,
something that bothered me about this chapter specifically, and I think I kind of tied into a larger issue at the end, is Deku meets this like kid with dot hair who's at UA, and he's like, I want to be a hero like you. Can I become a hero like All Might? And I like that Deku went back to his sort of early like, oh, I can analyze his power.
It's cute.
And the part that I didn't like is that this essentially has entirely lost the theme of the intro, the start of My Hero Academia, which when you're talking about story structure and buy-in, we've talked about this on the pod before. There's this idea of setting sort of expectations of where the story is going in the first chapter or the first arc or the first sort of area of the thing. And at the beginning of My Hero Academia, we're promised a couple things. The promises that were made to me that I got out of this, and maybe people in the comments can give me more promises they thought were either filled or not filled by the end of this. I thought that we were promised Deku becoming sort of the number one hero and being regarded as that. I don't think that happened. I think that Deku saved everyone by defeating Shigaraki. I don't think Deku ever became the number one hero. Like that just didn't happen at all.
Yeah, I think you can people will try to explain that away by saying he was the number one hero at the moment.
Yeah, for a day. For
for that
very specific moment of time where he defeats Shigaraki, he is the number one hero.
Exactly.
So I think that's a promise that was not kept. And I think a big issue, again, talking about first half good, second half bad, is that there's just a lot of broken promises from the first half.
I agree with you that it's a broken promise. I think people will try to explain that away by using what we just talked about. But I think you're right. I think the intent was different.
Yeah, well, and I think honestly, you can read it like, okay, he wasn't the number one hero, but he did the number one hero thing. Like that one's like I will accept debate on that issue. In my opinion, this did not fulfill the promise for me specifically. The other thing that I think was promised at the start was that we were going to see a world where a boy that had no power gains a power, and how that is his benefit in a world of people born with powers, right? We were going to see that the fact that Deku did not have a power for, until he was 14 or whatever, was going to be part of his I don't want to use the word power again, part of his part of something that made him more special, right? Something that was special about Deku was that he was not born with the power. He was given the power because he deserved it.
I actually think I can disagree with that one. Can I explain?
Yeah, explain. But
Finish your thought, and I'll explain.
And the reason I think that this doesn't tie in thematically at the end here is specifically these pages with this kid, right? I like this last chapter. Like, if you could make a change, and I would not be making this complaint. If the last chapter Deku was talking to a kid with no powers as opposed to like this kid with dot hair powers, right? If he was talking to a kid with no powers and he would say, "Hey, can I be a hero too?" And Deku says, "Yes, you can be a hero. You can be a hero with, it doesn't matter if you have powers or don't have powers, you can be a hero." I think that was a promised theme early on in My Hero Academia. And while I do think that it is present and true throughout the story, this last chapter totally missed on it by giving the person that Deku says, "Yeah, you can be a hero too," powers. Like, that's just a total miss in my opinion. Like, the fact that the start of the story tells us that what makes you a hero is not the superpower you have, right? That to me is a theme in My Hero Academia. It gets dropped in the second half, and admitted, like almost everything does. But this last chapter had a chance to bring it back around to be like, hey, it turns out, remember, Deku didn't have powers and he became the greatest hero or whatever, and you can be a hero and you don't have to have powers. Instead, they make him say it to a kid with powers. And to me, that's just, he just misses with this. There's just a miss. Like, this is wrong.
I think we did get that moment. I think we did get that moment in the epilogue with the villain kid who's roaming the streets, so like clearly at a mental breakdown point, and the random granny holds his hand and tells him like, "It's okay, I'm here." And I think the point was that Deku empowered people to put themselves out there and just help their fellow man. Despite having powers or not, you can still be a hero, kind of. And that was my favorite moment of the epilogue.
I did like that. I do think I do think that works and fits in thematically. And again, like I said, I do think that this idea of it is, being heroic is not a thing that is only for people with powers. Like, I do think that is, fairly thematically consistent throughout My Hero Academia, when it is present. I just think that the fact that, again, this goes back to those promises at the start of My Hero Academia, the fact that we got a kid without powers who was promised to become the number one hero and then given a superpower, that was going to show us that you don't need a superpower to be a hero. And then at the end here, we get a callback to that, right? I mean, we literally, when he dives for the kid, I don't remember if there's a flash or if we see it or what, but Deku and this other, kid that he's talking to both dive for this falling child. And there's, I think, a flash to Deku, running or diving to help Bakugo in chapter 1, right?
Right.
So it ties us back to that start, but instead of selling to us the idea, the promise that I felt like I was made of, you do not need to be a superhero to be a hero. I think that it's that, instead of tying it in a perfect, neat little circle at the end of having a kid without powers say, you don't need to be powers, anyone can be a hero. It just misses the right at the end where it says, yeah, anybody can be a hero. You have superpowers. I'm telling it to you. So of course you can be a hero. It, like, I don't know. It just like misses right at the 1 yard line for me.
Because I think ultimately at superhero school, you need to have a power. But I think like the point of that theme was made with the granny part. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just like literally fumbling at the 1 yard line. Like, all he had to do was make the kid who he says this to not have a power. And to me, it's like awesome theme throughout all of My Hero Academia, right? Like, it ties up neatly in a neat little bow. I did not like that. So
I guess it wouldn't make sense for me because like Deku the only reason Deku went to school is because he had All Might's powers, like I think it resonated with the granny part. I think this part was just kind of like, I don't know. I didn't feel anything here either, for what it's worth. I think this is a miss for, like, not if this kid had a power or not. I don't think it would have changed how I felt. It's just like a reflection of Deku and All Might's moment. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I would have liked then. I did like the granny moment. I had maybe go back and read it. I don't remember exactly what she says. I feel like it's it's in Weekly Shonen Jump, like beat me over the head with the theme at the end, especially. If that granny reached out to that, stumbling villain or whatever and was like, let me be your hero, like something like that to me would tie it in a neat little bow at the end.
She said granny's here.
I guess. I mean, maybe it's different.
That is just the theme, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's like I said, I think it is mostly really good. I just think in this chapter, like literally one little change, if this guy doesn't have a power and he says, can I be a hero too? And Deku says, of course you can. Anyone can be a hero.
Deku would be a liar. Deku would be a liar. He can't go to superhero school. He could be like a local hero, like a firefighter.
I mean, erase the fact that they are at superhero school or whatever, right? But that mirroring is a cool thing that I like. So I would have enjoyed this to be a mirror of the start where, Deku asks All Might if he can be a hero, and he says, like, of course you can, or whatever, right? Like, so the mirroring here didn't, and he says, of course you can, to a Deku without powers. So
yeah, you're right. The mirroring here didn't work at all. But
this tries to be a mirror to me that was just missing a part that was very key to the intro. I think that,
just end it with the granny moment, because I think that would have been great.
Stronger.
Yeah, that's a stronger.
That would have been really good.
Because it's like, you don't even need to mirror this moment, I feel, because All Might just gave Deku his hair and said, okay, let me juice you up now. Yeah. After, right? Like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. This was an okay moment. I thought the epilogue had like a lot of good moments. Why the fuck is Dabi still alive, first of all? But putting that aside,
I totally forgot about that. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the moment with Dabi and his family, him telling Shoto his favorite food.
Yeah.
The part with Uraraka,
oh god,
I did see complaints about that, like that there was like no kiss or whatever, no confession. But like, who cares? That romance was barely established. Like, I mean, it was a plot device to be Deku's love interest, but like they focused like no time on that.
But that's I'll make an argument on the other side. That's the thing, is that the only thing Uraraka had was that she was a love interest for Deku. And so if you don't give that a payoff for her character of giving her a romantic moment with Deku, that again,
let's be real, we all would have just said it was unearned anyway, right? So like, I feel like it's better this way. Just leave it as is.
I don't know. I think I would have liked it. I think if they kissed or, had some kind of romantic moment, I would have been like, good, we at least got a payoff. Obviously it was unearned because he can't write women, but like,
we would have yelled, unearned. This is so unearned. I know I would have. I would have screamed unearned if they had.
I agree it's unearned. I would have I think I would have enjoyed the catharsis of, okay, Uraraka's one character trait is that she likes Deku is paid off. Like, I think that I would have seen that as a positive, but
I would have seen it as what I saw right now. It's nothing, I guess. Ida is just mysteriously gone from the final fight and epilogue, except for this one panel.
What is Ida just doesn't appear after like the Stain arc? Does like barely. Like, once, what maybe? The fuck? No, he does one thing in the final thing with somebody rides on him and he does like Ingenium boost or I don't remember. Does he throw Bakugo or he throws Todoroki or somebody? I don't remember.
I don't remember. He's there to help pick people up and help them run for a little bit.
He was our third main character type guy, and he
definitely was for a bit there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, fuck Ida, I guess.
But that's the whole sort of another issue that My Hero Academia has for its entirety, even in the beginning, is that the cast is too large, and Horikoshi does not give the side cast enough time. And this is, again, one of those things that the anime actually does a lot of work to fix, because a lot of these side characters get their own little special episodes and stuff, which I think are great. So, yeah.
And I liked Bakugo's moment at the hospital where he cried after Deku lost his powers. I thought that was very sweet. Yeah. And kind of like, I think Bakugo's character arc was generally pretty good. And that was like a good culmination of everything. Yeah, I don't know. I think this was the best ending Horikoshi could have done with what he had, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. This is the issues I have with the sort of last chapter, the last 3 or 4 chapters are from years of poor writing, essentially. Years of poor writing led to this moment, and when we got here, he did a decent job at tying it all up, I would say. Because the epilogue stuff I think was all pretty decent.
Overall, like I I thought the last fight sucked, but I thought the epilogue was good. So it was like good as it can be.
Yeah, and there's little like where was it?
Eri going to school as a normal kid. That was cool.
Yeah. Is it? Oh no, wait. I forgot about this little extra.
Oh yeah, with Old Might.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. Where they like give him. I don't know. I don't know if we needed this, but it was cool to like.
Where he got his powers back. I don't think he needed it.
We'll just give you the God, and that's we didn't even talk about that about All Might getting his like power suit to fight.
His
All
Iron
for
Man
One,
suit.
which was I mean visually awesome, very cool suit, very Batman-esque. I love that kind of tribute. It
was an asshole, admittedly. But there had been so many assholes up until that point that I was just okay with it.
Yeah,
because it looked so good.
I don't think we ever talked about this on the pod, but one of the things I really hated about that was that that suit that they give All Might in this final fight, instead of being like, oh, who are the top heroes? It's Endeavor and it's Miracle and it's the washing guy and it's Edgeshot and Giant Lady. Like, instead of being like, oh, those are the top 10 heroes, let's give him all of those powers. They're like, we looked at the powers from class 1A of a bunch of 14 and 15-year-olds, and we gave you all of their powers. I think that's the dumbest fucking shit I have ever seen. I hated that, man.
I actually, there's a different moment that I hated in that fight.
Yeah.
Which is when Stain shows back up and uses his stupid ass ability, his niche quirk to neutralize All for One. Yeah, it's like if he licks his blood, he can paralyze someone temporarily. That's his power. It's really lame. But he uses it on All for One and paralyzes him. And then All for One has this other niche quirk to expel all the blood from his body.
I totally forgot about that.
To counter Stain's counter in like you activated my trap card kind of situation.
What a fucking story this is. I do like on this. I do like we get older. Like, why does this guy have a shitty mustache?
No, he's going through a phase. Don't worry about it.
Has a shitty mustache. Like, I like the way that some of them look older. The girls look exactly the same. Actually, they made Uraraka pretty thick.
Yeah. And like, I think the electric guy looks cooler.
Kaminari, he looks good. I like Jiro. I like the way she looks more adult and grown up. It has hair and stuff.
Momo has always looked like an adult, so she looks the same.
Yeah, Momo looks the same. Uraraka looks the same. Todoroki, everybody looks the same. I like Pinky's longer hair here is cool.
Yeah,
too.
I like that too. Horikoshi's just an excellent character design.
He's so yes. That's what. I am excited. I hope that he takes a long break. I hope he recovers. I hope he comes back. And we've said this again on the podcast a lot. I hope he comes back with a writing partner or with a shorter idea to execute on. Because the world needs more Horikoshi art and more Horikoshi designs, especially. I think going back to things we really like, I don't remember if we mentioned it. I think we did mention that like Horikoshi's art, like
it's phenomenal.
Slipped maybe once or twice, but like was almost always super on point.
Yeah.
Like holy crap, it looked good. And yeah, these designs at the end, the designs through the whole thing, super good.
All in all, I think it's like a pretty flawed series, but it's hard to be too hard on it because I can see that it had a heart behind it. Is kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to know who to blame. I don't want to say who to blame. No one's to blame, but the fact that Horikoshi couldn't take a break or catch up on writing is, you might say, oh well, a better writer could pull it off. Like, yeah, maybe, but is it the industry to blame for My Hero Academia's shitty second half because they don't let authors take breaks, or the schedule is too grueling that he just couldn't, get his mind around a new arc or write well in the second half? I guess that maybe is the sad part of it.
Yeah, because it's not even about like being a better writer or not. It's like how equipped. Yeah, I'm like, how equipped are you at dealing with the hellish schedule for 10 years, right? Like that's I think if it were me in Hori's shoes with that fucking schedule, I probably would have dropped the ball within year two,
because like we said, the first half lots of good writing, lots of good stuff. And so it's sad to see this sort of the industry maybe force someone who is both an amazing artist, designer, and arguably a good writer when he has time to think about it into a pretty piss poor second half.
Yeah.
And a not great final battle arc. I would say almost none of the character stuff at the end worked for me. And they killed Twice, who was the best character. So
they killed who?
Twice, who was the best character.
Yeah. I was going to say, who do you think was the best written character to cap this off? I was going to say Twice.
It's probably Twice, and then Endeavor, and then I don't even know who's third. Like,
those. Let's leave it at those two because they are the best.
Twice and Endeavor are the most well written characters. Like maybe you could say Bakugo or Todoroki up there, but
but no, I think you're right. It's just Twice and Endeavor. They
just list all the girls and put them right at the very end. And then Toga can be like maybe top 10 if she's lucky, but yeah.
No. Yeah. I don't know. I thought Toga was an annoying character more than a good character.
She's annoying, but I thought she was at least well characterized, and we knew
she was well characterized. I just didn't enjoy her presence.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool. We're winding down. Is there anything else, positive, negative, arcs, moments, anything else you want to call out here?
Honestly, I think we covered it.
Yeah. I mean,
even if there is stuff, it probably ties into what we already talked about.
Yeah, exactly. I think we covered kind of the large issues, the large benefit things. So that's it. No more My Hero Academia. Unfortunately, this is the part where I wish I could tell you to go read Vibration Man. But that unfortunately also got canceled. But that is a good superhero series.
I know. Oh, well, I guess I do have like one final thought to end this is I noticed that I guess I didn't put this together till now, but I noticed that when All For One took over Shigaraki, the hand was covering his mouth and face. I guess the hands are representative of All For One's control over him. And when he loses the hand, like the hand motif is like he is himself again.
We did see that because I think All For One like told him to like he like gave him the hands, didn't he? And was like,
I guess he did.
So I think he did in the history. So yeah, that's a good connection. But yeah,
I guess it was just explained. And I forgot about it. Okay, never mind.
That's fair. I forgot about a ton of stuff too. Because cool. Adios, farewell, My Hero Academia. It was good knowing you for about 200 chapters, and it was an absolute pain to read you for the last 4 or 5 years.
It kind of was, yeah.
I hate read this series for the majority of the last 4 years. So
it was just like the sunk cost fallacy where you've been with something for a while and you keep reading it. Yeah.
Well, and he would come through occasionally with these like, ooh, that's a cool arc, like the My Villain arc. Like, that's cool, and you'd be like, yeah, nice, he's back, and it's like, nope, he's not back.
Yeah, exactly.
So all right.
Let's get out of here. Let's move on to the next thing.
We're done. It's almost an hour on My Hero, so that's it. I mean, that's the last we'll talk on it, so that's the complete thoughts. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a new thing really quickly here. So this is Secret Steward, Chapter 1. This story is by Sanshiro Kashima, art by Hikaru Uesigi. This is the duo who brought you Deadpool Samurai previously. What I will say right now is if you have not read this and you liked Deadpool Samurai, or you are interested in that, go read this before going any further in our discussion. That is what I will say. Go read this right now. We will pause and wait for you. I promise.
Let's not pause and wait for them. Let's continue while they're reading.
Yeah, let's continue while they're reading. So this is hilarious. The first part is the most generic rom-com setup I've ever seen, and it is intentionally that way, and it is hilarious for what is coming.
It's a good plot. Yeah, it is like every shonen rom-com ever. Ever.
I mean, it is like absolute, like horribly trope filled. Like the trip he catches, oh, you're my steward. She's the most beautiful girl. He's the introvert.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I feel like this is, in my eyes, similar to the last few rom-coms we covered.
It absolutely is. Yeah. This is, Hima-ten is a little bit better, but it is the same tropes as in something like Hima-ten.
Yes, exactly. I read this and I couldn't I could tell it's like a little worse, but not that much worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely an issue. Okay, just fucking.
He trips down the staircase.
He slips down the staircase. He hits his head. Ow, pretty bad. He gets exploded by a car. Violence warning, by the way. And you're like, whoa, what the hell? Spoilers, baby. It's Deadpool. I had this kind of spoiled for me on Twitter. Someone was like, oh my gosh, like it was a secret. Go read this chapter. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let me go read that. I never would have read this. And I don't think you would have either if you didn't hear about it. So like, I was like, you have to go read this, Gautam. I think we need to talk about this.
And the good thing is, okay, so like Bruce wanted to talk about this and I'm like, okay, generic rom-com. I'll go read it. He didn't spoil anything for me. So this was like, I was completely caught off guard.
Which is probably the better way to experience it, which is why we sent people away at the start.
And they're still gone. But I fucking love it. Deadpool, have you read Deadpool Samurai?
I have not. I maybe read the first chapter of it a while ago. I need to go read it. It's not that long. I think it's like 40 chapters or something. But
it's very fun. It's a very fun. I need to go read it. It is like a lot of Deadpool comics where it is just a huge shitpost.
Yeah, and Deadpool's a fun character, like especially in comics. Like the movies, the third one we talked about, I thought was amazing. The other two, I think, are just okay. But Deadpool is still a fun character always. So
yeah, I liked all three, but I thought the third was like hilarious. And Deadpool Samurai is really good. Octogirl, right? Has the Sakura spider that was introduced in Deadpool Samurai.
Yeah, I heard about that. I need to catch up on both of those. Need to go read the stuff. Yeah, but it's just, it's just goofy shit from there. It's just, how do you know it was a Mushi or whatever.
This guy wasn't a love interest at all. He was a secret.
No, he was going to kill the girl and like steal her stuff. This is, okay, my favorite, the reveal is my favorite part, but my other part that I really liked is he tries to buy out Deadpool. He's like, oh, you're a merc, right? You'll work for money. He's like, hey, I've stolen all these jewels and cash from all the girls I've killed over the years. And then Deadpool hits him with the, sorry, I'm only accepting cashless payments right now, and shoots him in the head, which I thought was a great little thing. And he whips out he has this handy fourth dimensional pocket I borrowed from a friend. I'm going to assume that's like Doctor Strange or something, but it is just all very funny. It doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's great. And then like the girl shows up, and he's like, "Oh, what is that?" So I have a question because I haven't read Deadpool Samurai Part 1. Is there like an overarching story through it, or a character like side characters that stay kind of plot like relevant to a central plot? There is. Okay.
It's not a serious central plot. But yes, and there are side characters that stick around, like Sakura Spider.
Because I'm wondering if this girl is going to be the sort of like you killed my boyfriend. What did you do? Like my servant. Like, well, now you have to be my servant or something. I'm wondering if she's going to be like a core character going forward or not. But
yeah, I'm wondering because this is just such a shit post with a twist.
Yes,
and I love that he hit him with the classic truck that isekais people.
Yeah, the isekai truck is great. And I love that you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, it got violent. And then the next page is just like, it's Deadpool. Like it's a good.
I love that Deadpool just drives the truck into a wall and it blows up right after
He just drives into a wall and it blows up. Yeah, it's so good. I do need to go back and read, especially if there's going to be more, I assume weekly now, maybe bi-weekly. I should go back and read the first part and come back with it next week or something. And
what I love? I love commitment to a bit. And I love that this is like half of this was just a generic rom-com with its own title. What is it called? Secret Steward.
Yeah. I think that's honestly like the best part of it is that like this was announced like months ago. We talked about it, I'm pretty sure on the news on the podcast of like, oh yeah, the duo from Deadpool Samurai is doing a new rom-com series. It got announced, a couple weeks ago. And like we knew it was coming, it dropped. I wish that people had been more. I saw this on Twitter spoiled 2 or 3 times, so I wish people had been a little bit more like, "Oh my gosh, you have to go read this," without spoiling it for me. But it was still fine either way. I still think it's a great idea. I think it's great execution. I wonder when the next chapter hits if they're going to still call it Secret Steward or if it'll just be Deadpool Samurai second season.
At this point, they should just call it Deadpool Samurai. It was a good bit. It was a good reveal, and it felt like kind of a risk, right? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. Because if people hadn't, people have been spreading it around. I think just because like it's such a good bit, like you mentioned. So I think this was a great publicity stunt and a risky thing. And I'm glad that the Viz app whoever his publishers or editors on the other side of the pond are. I'm glad they let him do this. This is perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
Anything else here? We could go to the news.
Yeah, let's go to the news.
All right. Not a whole lot of news, but a little bit here. Shoujo Null, that's a series on Manga Plus, Shonen Jump Plus. That's going to end in 4 chapters. We didn't keep up with that. We read the first chapter. It was a hyper-violent girl series.
Yes, it's really dumb.
There always has to be one hyper-violent girls.
It was like the shittiest first chapter.
Yeah, the big news this week, which isn't really in our wheelhouse, but we'll cover it because it's been kind of all over. There's a huge leak of Netflix anime specifically. There was a leak. The first 6 episodes of Dan to Dan were leaked. There were 8. The Terminator anime is coming out in a couple months or a couple weeks here. 8 of those episodes were leaked. The entire Mononoke movie was leaked. 4 episodes of Ranma 1/2 were leaked, and 5 episodes of Arcane season 2 were leaked. Which is a lot of leakage from the largest streaming platform. So
yeah, we've been seeing some major leakage. I don't know, that it doesn't really matter. I think it won't matter is what I'm trying to say.
I think it won't matter for the popularity. I think people. Well, we'll see.
I guess I'm not going to go watch these leaks in shitty quality. I have impulse control, so I'll just wait. And I think most human beings are just going to wait.
I think most people are waiting. I don't think this is not a huge deal for people who are big fans. It'll have a minor effect, but the guy who leaks this is going to be in jail by the end of the year. They're good.
Yeah, maybe not worth it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't have the news thing in front of me, but they announced that it was from one of their foreign, not subsidiaries, but one of the foreign people they send their shows to, I think, to do probably localization or remastering it for a foreign country was how they got this. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. All right. Lots of big news here. Rent-A-Girlfriend creator Reiji Miyajima, his second series, The Shunji Family Children, is getting an anime trailer. This is the incest one. That's getting an anime.
Okay.
Yep. More Rent-A-Girl news. Awesome. Rent-A-Girl Adventure video game was also announced. It's going to be, I assume, like a dating sim. Apparently all the girls on an island, so lots of bikini stuff.
Free to play, microtransactions, you pay to rent the girlfriends.
God, they would make so much money if they did that. Okay.
They really would, actually.
They actually would. It's not, no joke. CoroCoro Comic has announced that they're starting a new Sonic manga series titled Shadow the Hedgehog. I might check that out. I'm like a casual Sonic fan. I think Shadow's pretty cool. CoroCoro is a magazine for children most of the time, I believe. And hey, growing up in the 90s, my brother and I were both huge fans of the Sonic comic from
Sonic
Archie
Adventure
Comics.
Battle 2. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah,
the Archie comic Sonic is like legitimately really good. The stuff with like Princess Sally and that guy with the French accent whose name I don't remember, but those were legitimately good comics. So this we'll see how this is.
I don't know if they're going to lean into the shitpostiness of Sonic Boom or if they're going to play it straight. I'm curious because I don't know if you can play Sonic straight anymore.
Yeah, well, and it's Shadow, who's like part of the joke of Shadow is that he's like overly serious compared to Sonic's kind of chill, aloof attitude. So I don't know.
But like back when Shadow was introduced, it was like not kind of a gag. It was like his seriousness was taken seriously instead of nowadays where it's mirrored as this is just the edgy boy.
Yeah.
Well, it was archetype to be
in Sonic Adventure 2. In Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, when he's introduced, it is contrasted against Sonic's kind of, I talk shit at you. I'm a goofball. And Shadow's like all serious. It was, but you're right. He wasn't like, I'm too edgy, man, which is what he is now. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, I like this, like the modern interpretation of Shadow being kind of lame for being this edgy.
Yeah.
Better because he always was a little lame for being that edgy, as we saw in Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game.
Oh, God, yeah. Hold
on. Before we go on, do you think he's going to have that human woman that he's like dating?
Is that a thing that happened? The only thing I know about Shadow is that like his backstory is that a girl
Maria
dies. No, that's the girl who dies. Maria's like the little girl who gets killed in his backstory.
Oh, wait, I'm thinking of Sonic 06. Sonic is dating a human woman. Never mind.
That's weird.
It's odd.
Yeah. The final piece of news I have here, which is a funny thing, we'll cap it off with My Hero Academia again. Last week we announced, and you may have seen, there was a final big announcement, that took place a day after we got the final chapter of My Hero Academia. And that final big announcement that they hyped up a lot was a worldwide character poll, which is not a big announcement. It is a minor announcement. Japan.
Hey, the next announcement's the pachinko machine, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think I made a tweet about it, but I was like, you need to understand, manga publishers, Japan, whoever needs to understand, a big announcement is anime adaptation, new manga, new anime, a movie. Like, those are big announcements. Those are like entire properties being announced. A character poll, I don't care if it's worldwide or not a big announcement. That is a medium announcement. Like, hey, we have some news for you, not some big news. Anyways.
Yeah, it's just another poll to tell us that Todoroki's the most popular, or, Bakugo's the most popular, Todoroki's the second most, and Deku's the third most.
Yeah, and girls probably, none of them break the top 10, so we'll see.
Yeah, maybe not.
I think that's it for news. Let's go on to one more thing. I'll go first here. It was announced this week with a Kickstarter, a Cosmere role-playing game. So the Cosmere, if you are not aware, is author Brandon Sanderson's sort of connected universe of high fantasy novels. We knew that this was coming, but what we thought was that it was only one of his properties. This was announced as a Stormlight role-playing game. Stormlight Archives is one of his fantasy series, the largest one. And so, we were told Stormlight Archive fantasy role-playing game is coming. We got to see some mechanics released beforehand. That was all good. And then when this dropped on, I guess Tuesday or Wednesday, I think maybe Wednesday this dropped. It dropped on Wednesday and said, hey, it's not just for the singular property. It's not just for Stormlight Archives. It's for the whole Cosmere, which is a pretty massively big surprise, which I think is pretty cool. So I will be backing this for $300 and getting a lot of stuff because these books are going to contain lore and power systems and things of those fantasy books, which I have read all of and I think are amazing. I've brought up Brandon Sanderson multiple times. His writing style and his thoughts on writing through podcasts and interviews and other things, I think are some of the most excellent things you can read to dissect or even start writing yourself. But this is pretty sick, and I'm really excited for this, and I had to give it a call out here. So if you're interested in those, this is going to be awesome. So
nice. Yeah, that looks sweet, especially given how popular his books are and how many other properties have role-playing systems like Star Wars and whatnot.
Yeah.
Might as well get in on the hype there.
Yep. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. So Gautam, what have you been up to?
I've been cripplingly addicted to TFT as per usual. Every 3 or 4 months or so, I fall down a rabbit hole where I can't recapture the time I've spent on TFT. It has been fun. This set, unlike the last set, is a good one in that it's enjoyable to play. Unlike the last one.
Needs a little bit of balance work. I put Syndra up here because I watched some streamers play and they have just been complaining about this single unit winning games. And I have also seen in my games that the unit just is top 2 or 3 every time. So yeah, I've been playing a little bit of this. It's fun. It is, I think, a good set. It needs a little bit of balancing, but we'll get there.
I think it always starts this way with the sets where the 2-star or 3-star units, there's something that's insanely broken.
Yeah.
And it's the purple, the expensive units are always a little weaker because having the opposite problem is even worse. Yeah. Because it makes the early game unfun. You're just power leveling at that point.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's definitely good.
Yeah.
Are you, what rank are you now? I think I'm
gold 1.
Okay, I've been gold losing. 3 or gold 2. I don't know. I didn't play a whole lot yesterday, but cool. I think that's it. That's it for our whole big, long diatribe on My Hero Academia. Hey, thank you again, everyone. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoy talking about My Hero Academia. I think there's a lot to sort of dissect on why it is the way it is and if it is it valuable still, which I think it is still valuable.
I think so.
But yeah. Hey, thanks again, everybody, for listening or watching. Don't forget to leave us some feedback in the comments. Go upvote, thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that jazz. You can check out Twitter and Patreon, don't forget, which are linked in the description. And that's it. Thanks for being with us yet again this week.
See you later.
And don't forget to read more manga.